What's up, criminal scum? Over the last couple of streams that I've done here on YouTube, the topic of open worlds has come up regularly, and in those conversations, I keep calling back to one game in particular, The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion.
If you smack talk Oblivion, I will...
Oblivion sucks weenie.
I will class that as cyberbullying.
Hi, welcome back to Oblivion chat number 69. Back again telling you how good Oblivion is. Remember the cats? That was good.
The cats weren't in Oblivion.
I don't care.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure it ranks second in my favourite games of all time, behind Metal Gear Solid, and nothing Bethesda has done since has topped it, for me at least. So I'm going to take a deep dive and see why, over 10 years on, this game can still outdo almost all other open world games on the market. Let's dig in and see why I'm wrong. I mean, right. I meant to say, see why I'm right. Now, I'll assume if you're watching this video, then you're already familiar with the Elder Scrolls series. I'm not here to bore you with the whole Oblivion is the fourth entry in the immensely popular role-playing series, played by neckbeards like me in dark, sweaty basements. There's plenty of that on YouTube already. I'm just going to jump straight in and highlight Oblivion's standout features. First off, the voice acting. No, sorry, the world. If you look at a map of Tamriel, the Elder Scrolls fictional continent, you'll see the provinces that serve as the world for each Elder Scrolls game. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I were to design a fictional continent and then choose one province to set my game in, you're damn right I'm going to choose the one in the frickin' middle. What are you, insane? High Rock, get out of here. Obviously, I'm joking there, a little bit, but thanks to a very welcoming and rounded art style, Oblivion's world had variety in it that hasn't been matched since. Everything from the towns to the villages, the Blade's absolute dojo up in the mountains, there was something new to discover, visually, almost everywhere. It's difficult not to contribute this to Oblivion's art style in particular. Fallout 3 had a distinct hue to its world and a big focus on post-apocalyptic grime and dirt. Skyrim was focused on presenting itself as rugged, northern, and most importantly, freezing bloody cold. Both of these games did a good job in those aspects, but for me, the more Tolkien-esque, non-specific direction Oblivion had allowed each part of Cyrodiil to stand on its own feet and to breathe, visually speaking. Also, Cyrodiil as a province is thematically a melting pot of cultures and races, which means that there's a bunch of different people with a bunch of different styles and tastes serving as the backbone of the game's world. Also, I just prefer this to this. Sorry. Next up, the voice acting. I keep saying voice acting. I don't know. Questing and gameplay. That's what I meant. I was a relative newcomer to action RPGs back when I first played Oblivion, and as an introductory showcase to leveling, dialogue trees, stats, and open-ended quest design, the game felt stellar. I know there's been some criticism aimed at Oblivion over the downgrade in open-endedness coming off the back of Morrowind, and I totally get that. I feel the same way regarding Oblivion and any of Bethesda's other games since, but try telling that to 13-year-old me. I was in absolute awe, constantly. The Thieves Guild, Dark Brotherhood, the main quest, you've heard all this before. It had that key ingredient I'll mention again, variety, that made the game feel fleshed out and alive. Once you walked into a new town or city, there were little to no cheesy, elaborate scripted sequences telling you, hey, listen up, right? This is what's happening here. Oh, by the way, it's good that you just so happen to arrive at the exact time that this is occurring. You're brilliant. Well done. I know Kvatch is a whole thing, but you as a character in the world had direct relevancy to that siege going ahead. It wasn't just a thing that's happening regardless. What is this, Mafia 3? What is this, Big Rigs 2? What is this, I don't know, Bowser's Inside Story? I think the main quest deserves a particular mention too. Since Oblivion, Bethesda's RPGs have shifted from more traditional open-ended games to far more marketable, accessible experiences that revolve around a single protagonist. With the Fallout games, you have the power armor slapped all over the cover art and the trailers. It is dead set on saying, this could be you, you're a killing machine. Here's a gun, best of luck. With Skyrim, you are the Dovahkiin, the Dragonborn, tamer of the beast. It's very cold. Wear a jacket. You'll catch your death. In Oblivion, you're just a dude. You're a person. You start in prison and that's all you're given. Now, I know the Emperor sees you in his dreams and all that crap, but that's about the extent of any Chosen One prophecy-related garbage. Dumpster stink. Martin, the Emperor's son, is the main focus of the game's plot, and that ain't you. In my opinion, that lends more credence and believability to you going out and doing all the typical things you can do in a Bethesda game. You're a blank slate, so it's not weird when you ally yourself with all these different guilds and organisations. In Skyrim and Fallout, however, it always felt inconsistent when jumping ship from one guild to another, or from one side of a conflict to the opposing one. When I played through Skyrim, I remember routinely passing a guard outside of General Tullius's war room in Solitude when I was completing quests and acquiring new ones. Every single time this guard saw me, he would refer to me as someone completely different because of how far along I was in the game. So one minute it's, "You're that thief, keep your hands to yourself," and then it was, "Ah, the leader of Nambla, keeping well," and like 5 other greetings. It was just one of many hindrances I felt existed in that game that prevented me from getting fully immersed in it. It felt fake. And that brings me rather neatly to my final point. Oblivion as a complete package had consistency. You could enter every building in the game, regardless of whether or not there was anything of worth inside. You could also open up a full dialogue with nearly every NPC in the game, regardless of their importance to any quest or side activity. It was knowing these two things, along with the fully fledged AI and visual direction of the game, that has solidified its place in my top 5 favourite games and put it light years ahead of any Bethesda game since, for me. Oblivion felt real. I know it's super dumb and far too simplistic of a term, but I think that's simply it. The game's overall design, its characters and its AI were jaw-dropping for the time, and actually had to be dumbed down and streamlined for the final game. There's a great story in the Making of Oblivion documentary, where a single NPC in Anvil, I think it was just going around shop to shop buying up every piece of armour in the game, because he liked armour, I guess, and that this was one of the red flags that led to them turning down that big Radiant AI system a couple of notches before the game's actual release. Now, contrast that to Skyrim, where it would seem a lot of the NPCs in the world exist solely to fill space and to say 2 or 3 lines of dialogue to you before going to sleep in one of the many cookie-cutter inns peppered throughout the game. When you spend as much time in the world as you typically do in a Bethesda game, these things begin to stand out, and they feel sloppy. It feels as though the shift that Bethesda have made to more action-orientated, accessible AAA games has allowed them to simply create the illusion of a living world, as opposed to an emulation of one, as it essentially does the same job in the short term. But as with any work of fiction, the world, the characters within it, and the stories they have to tell are really what define a lasting, quality experience, be it a book, a movie, or a game. That's not to say that Skyrim, Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 are bad games, they're just different ones, with a different set of priorities. They've also sold millions upon millions of copies, so who am I to talk? Unfortunately for us though, that change that Bethesda have made to their games could mean we'll never see that level of detail and variety from them again, especially if the likes of Fallout 4 are what we can expect more of in the future. But that doesn't mean we can't get it elsewhere. When I take a look at the design pillars that Bethesda put in place for games like Morrowind and Oblivion, they seem to align quite clearly with the ones CD Projekt Red have in place for Cyberpunk 2077. Now, granted, marketing has gotten more cunning and subversive over the years, but if the level of scrutiny we saw in that super long gameplay demo for Cyberpunk is actually consistent throughout the entire game, well, we might have ourselves another Oblivion. Take care guys, and have a good one.